How we living, big dogs? Welcome back to the HQ. It's your man's Nicholas, representing BDGE. Big dogs gotta eat fantasy football. We're back talking rookies. We're talking the top quarterbacks in the 2019 NFL draft class, the top tight ends in the 2019 NFL draft class, and just overall for 2019 fantasy football. Their projections, their outlooks based on their college production, based on their combine performances, their athleticism, what my eyeball saw on the tape. You know we're breaking everything down 2019 fantasy football going forward. If you missed last week's episodes on the top rookie running backs or the top rookie wide receivers, make sure you go peep the channel, or the overall NFL Combine recap breakdown by your manses over at Fade the Public with myself, Animal, and Snacks. Those are some good episodes, a lot of value in them. Go check them out. But today, we're talking about quarterbacks. We're talking about tight ends. Let's get it. So quarterbacks and tight ends obviously are not as exciting as the skill players, running backs, and wide receivers, and that's probably because you are not playing in enough varied types of fantasy leagues. If you play in a Dynasty league, every player becomes exciting. If you play in Superflex leagues, quarterbacks become exciting. So if neither of these positions excite you, it is your own fault. It is because you're not playing in good leagues. And I have a solution for that, but I'll talk about that later in the video. The first quarterback up on the list that we obviously want to talk about is Kyler Murray. He was like the talk of the combine. He's been the talk of SportsCenter, of course, because they're corny-ass people over there, for like the last 2 months nonstop. Kyler Murray did not participate at the combine. His participation, it's going to be one of those types of days, huh? His performance was basically his measurements. He came in at 5'10 and 207 pounds. 5'10 is what he measured exactly, was about 3/4 inches shorter than Russell Wilson and 3 pounds heavier than Russell Wilson at his combine day. And the reason, of course, that I compare him to Russell Wilson is because they're a similar type quarterback where they can very much use their legs very quick, very fast, and they can scramble for a lot of yardage, but they're also very, very, very good throwers. Kyler Murray, don't get it twisted, Kyler Murray is a very, very, very good passer. I don't know how he weighed in at 5. I know how he weighed in at 207. It's because he didn't run, because he had probably been eating Mickey D's for like 4 straight days to get that weight up. You hear that? My house burning down? Oh man, y'all see this? You probably can't see the smoke. Ooh, it's smoky as shit in here. I was about to make some eggs. I left that on for probably the last 30 minutes. That's really bad. So we gotta open the windows in here. I apologize. Right, so talking about eating food, that's exactly what Kyler Murray was doing prior to this combine. It's the reason he didn't run, because he would have run slow. 207 pounds. I don't know how he weighed in, or how he measured in at 5'10". There are a lot of rumors going around that he somehow upped his height, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I've seen a lot of pictures lately coming out, him next to Tua, who is the Alabama quarterback, who is a clear 6 foot tall, and Kyler is like a good 3 to 4 inches shorter than him. There's also pictures next to Antonio Brown, who is 5'10", and Kyler is clearly shorter than him too, so it's a little iffy there. Either way, that's what the official mark is, and he's going to be a first-round quarterback pick, whether that is somewhere later in the first round or first overall to the Cardinals. I'm not about to talk about draft speculation. We're going to get into Kyler Murray, who he is as a passer, a rusher, and what his fantasy upside is. But going off that height thing, right? Like, what does that even mean? What is the concern with the height? He can't see over linemen? Like, first of all, he just played at Oklahoma. The Oklahoma linemen are no shorter than the NFL linemen. Yes, they might not be as good, but all those boys over at Oklahoma are 6'3", 6'5", 6'6", and 300 whatever pounds. So if Kyler Murray can see over them, which he did perfectly at Oklahoma, there's no problem with him and the offensive linemen in the NFL. You might say, oh, he's going to get a lot of passes batted down. But as you can see by this tweet, that's not the case. Kyler Murray, compared to some of the other top prospects in terms of percentage of their passes batted down, 1.3% at 5'10", which is a much lower rate than Drew Lock at 6'4", or Daniel Jones at 6'5". I think we're good here. The two concerns would obviously be that he can't see over the linemen, which he did fine at Oklahoma, and that he'll have a lot of passes batted down. So that's not the case. Plus, he's a scrambler, and he gets out if he needs to get outside of the pocket, so he doesn't need to necessarily see over the linemen all the time. Kyler is so damn talented as both a passer and a runner. Obviously, right? He's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. You look at his numbers. His final year at Oklahoma, 4,361 passing yards and 11.6 yards per attempt, 42 passing touchdowns, adding 1,000 yards and 12 more touchdowns on the ground. So you're looking at 54 total touchdowns, 4,361 passing yards, and an additional 1,000 yards on the ground. Kyler is also an exemplary deep passer. He had an adjusted completion percentage per PFF of 51.9% on his deep passes, which traveled 20 plus yards in the air. Like I said, 11.6 yards per attempt is fantastic. It's almost 2.5 yards more per attempt than the next prospect, Dwayne Haskins, which we'll get into in a bit. Kyler is great in the pocket, but he also shines when he's under pressure or outside of the pocket. His adjusted completion percentage shot up to 78.7% when he was outside of the pocket with a passer rating of 128.3. And looking at this little graphic from PFF, this is Kyler versus pressure amongst all draft eligible quarterbacks with at least 75 dropbacks under pressure. His passer rating was first in the entire country, 103.3. His adjusted completion rate, 76.5%, was also first in the country under pressure. All of the numbers, all of the analytics tell you that Kyler is a fantastic passer. Now, I'll go on record here and say I definitely do not think he is up to par with Baker Mayfield in terms of being an accurate quarterback. And one of PFF's most predictive statistics in terms of quarterback success at the next level is how accurate your passes are to or further than the sticks in a clean pocket. So like basically 10 yards down the field or further to all parts of the field. And Murray's uncatchable rate, the rate at which his passes were uncatchable to the receivers at or past the sticks, was at 28%, which is not bad whatsoever, but Baker Mayfield's was at an elite 21% of his passes. So he may not be as great as an intermediate thrower as Baker is in terms of just pure accuracy. What he adds on the ground for a fantasy perspective is just otherworldly, right? Like I said, he added 1,000 rushing yards on top of 4,300 passing yards. So Superflex Dynasty leagues, Kyler Murray is the 101. And I don't think it's close because there's no clear running back one here. For a one quarterback league, he probably doesn't crack the first round just because, quarterbacks just lose a lot of value. But when we're talking about season long leagues, if he falls later in the draft, like if he falls to where a lot of the, that big median of all the middle guys go and they go late in one quarterback league season long, Kyler would definitely be a guy that I'm targeting. If he's a starter for 16 games somewhere in the NFL, name the last time a starting NFL quarterback that has the rushing ability of Kyler Murray did poorly in fantasy. Like even Lamar Jackson, who put up no passing yards, was consistently a top 12 quarterback. Week over week, he was putting up those consistent numbers. Anyone who has this rushing floor and this rushing upside is a top 12 fantasy quarterback. So if he's starting 16 games for an NFL team, I would almost put, we'll bet the fucking mortgage on it. We'll bet the mortgage on it that Kyler Murray is a top 15 fantasy quarterback easily if he is the starter somewhere for 16 weeks. Let's move over to Dwayne Haskins, the next guy up on this list. Dwayne Haskins is pretty much the black version of Jameis Winston. Wait, what? He's like the black version of Big Ben. Oh, wait, that's already Jameis Winston. Okay, y'all get the point. He's big, 6'3", 231 pounds. He can move around the pocket. He's elusive in the pocket. Don't get it twisted. He's 5'04", 40-yard time. Slow as shit, right? Probably slower than my mother. And I will get, next time I see her, I'm going to get her on camera running a 40-yard dash, and we're going to prove it. I'm going to put a little infographic of him running his 40 with my mom running the 40. And I bet you she wins. But like I said, elusive in the pocket. Those are what you look for because that's how you extend the plays and get your guys down the field. Haskins had a monster sophomore season. It was his first year as the starter for the Buckeyes. 70% completion rate on his passes, 4,800 passing yards, and an absurd 50 passing touchdowns. Now, Haskins is a very interesting case to me because I have friends, mainly Snacks, who's a Giants fan, that really wants Haskins to be his quarterback. They want him to draft Haskins 6th overall. There's a lot of people in the fantasy football or just NFL community that I follow on Twitter that feel very strongly that he is not even a first-round graded quarterback, especially compared to the previous years of quarterbacks that we've seen influx into the league right now. A lot of people don't like Haskins as a first-round pick. What I will say is the 50 touchdowns, that's hard to lie about. We've seen people in certain offenses like Houston or offenses that just run very high-powered put up 48, 55 passing touchdowns in very big years. But at Ohio State, you don't see that often. So it is definitely something to keep an eye on. He's a very pure passer, very good from the pocket, and I think he will have a lot of success in the NFL. If Haskins goes to the Giants, that would be very intriguing just because they have such a good young core of weapons there. So he would probably be my 103 in Superflex. I like Kyler there. I like N'Keal Harry as the 102, and then I like Haskins as a 103 because if he breaks right, he's going to be surrounded by a really good group of weapons for a really long time and will be a very valuable fantasy asset. In one quarterback leagues, I'm probably not even touching him in regular redraft fantasy leagues. So let's talk about these dynasty leagues that I will be opening up soon. If you have never participated in a dynasty league, I promise you they are a shitload of fun. They're probably on par, if not more fun than season-long leagues. Now, we have partnered with Big Dogs Gotta Eat, myself. We have partnered with Flea Flicker. They will host all of the Big Dogs Only audience member leagues, as well as Team Stake. So these will be paid leagues. In the month of April, I will be opening up, if not sooner, maybe the end of March, I will be opening up Big Dogs Only Dynasty leagues. So only if you're a member of my audience will you be able to join these leagues. You will be able to choose between $35, $75, and I think $175 buy-ins for these leagues. You will be able to choose between one quarterback and Superflex leagues. So if you're a little intimidated by Superflex or you never played in a dynasty, you will have options to choose from. I will be joining a few of them myself. You might have to get lucky and join a random league, and maybe I'll be in there. Maybe some of the other Big Dogs Gotta Eat content creators will be in there. But these will be available end of March, early April, and I will do this for redraft leagues as well, because if you're looking for other competitive people in the fantasy football space to play with, I know it's not easy to find good leagues throughout the summer, and this is somewhere, like my audience members can join together and kind of join a whole community based around it. So this will be available to my Patreon members. So patreon.com/BDGE is where you'll sign up. Within Patreon, you will also get access to my Dynasty rankings, all year-round Dynasty rankings, my in-season weekly rankings when the season actually kicks off. You'll get private live streams, which I do once a week, helping you prep for your Dynasty drafts if you are in them. So a lot of awesome stuff, a lot of really cool stuff coming in the BDGE pipeline. So make sure you check that out, patreon.com/BDGE, if you are interested in joining Dynasty Leagues. So we talked about Haskins and Murray, and to be honest with you, none of these other quarterbacks in this class intrigue me, so I really don't want to break them down, because even if they do end up having good careers, they're likely not going to have any sort of fantasy impact in 2019. So drop a comment down below. Let me know which quarterbacks you see kind of going under the radar you think could surprise this year or just into the future. Who are you guys most high on? Because I don't see many quarterbacks behind these top two that I see being staples of an NFL franchise. So let me know down below. Let's move over to tight ends, though. First guy on this list, undoubtedly, is Noah Fant of Iowa. Top two prospects at the tight end position are both from Iowa, both probably first-round prospects after the Combine. Noah Fant absolutely blew away the Combine this year. Tested literally as one of the greatest tight ends to ever test at the NFL Combine. Best comparable player, George Kittle. No surprise there in terms of athleticism, his testing, and the school that he comes from. 99th percentile 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.5 at 6'4", 249 pounds. Breakout age in the 85th percentile, college dominator in the 82nd percentile, weight adjusted, burst, agility, catch radius, all 96th percentile or above. I mean, this guy is just in line to be the next stud tight end in the NFL. I would say he's probably not as an all-around great prospect as T.J. Hockenson is, the next guy we're going to get into, his teammate at Iowa, in terms of all three downs, being an elite blocker in both pass and run blocking and all those kind of things. But Noah Fant is... Jesus Christ, his ceiling is the roof, as Snacks would say. He is great at running routes, great at adjusting to tough passes, tough catches, I guess you could say, from bad passes. Great yak. He literally just looks like an athlete, like a wide receiver in a 6'5", 250-pound body. He's so fluid and he's just so athletic that he literally just pops off the film. When you watch him, you're like, how is this guy a tight end? How is he that big? His hips are so fluid and he's just so good with the ball in his hands. Been moved all over the offense. He's flexed out wide a lot of the times. He plays from inline. He gets put in the backfield and then put in motion. He just has the entire package there. He's someone I absolutely love as a prospect, and I would be drafting him in all of my Madden franchise mode fantasy drafts. Like when I watch the tape, he's so impressive. He looks like a young Jimmy Graham to me, like a 21-year-old Jimmy Graham. The problem, of course, with tight ends is that they rarely, almost never have big rookie years. And I remember pulling out this stat a few months ago. So make sure you're following me on Twitter at Nick_BDGE and on Instagram, Big Dogs Fantasy, because we be tweeting and we be posting valuable information that you're not going to get via YouTube all the time on those platforms. So make sure you're following me there. This is what I tweeted out a couple months ago. Chris Herndon's 502 receiving yards in 2018 were the 12th highest total for a rookie tight end over the last 20 years. So Chris Herndon, someone who's getting like literally no love right now, had a top 12 season over the last 20 years for rookie tight ends. 502 receiving yards. That should pretty much tell you all you need to know about rookie tight ends and their production. So I know I said it on Twitter and on last week's video with Fade the Public that I'd probably be thinking about grabbing Noah Fant in the first round over like some of these rookie running backs, but I think your man's might have lied. He's just going to be, if you draft him in Dynasty, he's just going to be sitting on the bench pretty much all year, probably on your taxi squad. It might take more than a year for Noah Fant to see real production in fantasy football. It might even take 2. We've just been spoiled with George Kittle, who we see second year have one of the greatest production years of all time at the tight end position. But you look at David Njoku. This will be his 3rd year, and we're still not really sure if the breakout is going to come. It took Ertz 3 years just to crack the top 10. He became tight end 10 in fantasy football in his 3rd year, and tight end 10 is really not that good when you compare it to the top elite guy. It took, the 21-year-old Eric Ebron like 14 years before he finally broke out. Kelsey was solid in his first 2 years, but didn't truly explode until year 3. So this is very real, guys. Noah Fant may not actually be a fantasy producer for the first couple of years that you own him. It might make more sense to actually take a running back who will give you production in the first year and 2 years, because that's when running backs tend to have a lot of production, meaning that their trade value is at the highest at that point. So instead of drafting a guy whose trade value goes down over the first couple of years, you might as well draft a guy whose trade value goes up and then maybe try to move it. But I love Noah Fant. If I'm going to take one tight end in this class in fantasy, it's easily Noah Fant, and I don't think it's close. But T.J. Hockenson, also of Iowa, is another beast. He was awesome in his own right at Iowa, and while he was overshadowed by his teammate, he still had a very, very, very good combine. Stands at 6'5", 251 pounds, so very good size. 74th percentile college dominator, ran a 4.740, which isn't, explosive as you'd like to see, but that still puts him in the 74th weight adjusted speed score percentile because he's so big. 89th percentile burst score, 87th agility score, 91st percentile catch radius. So if Noah Fant wasn't here, if he wasn't in this class, he would easily be the most talked about tight end in this class. While Fant is more like the wide receiver and the athlete, Hockenson has the entire package. He has that Travis Kelce skill set where he is a very good run blocker, a very good pass blocker at this point in his career. And he could do it all. And he's also a very good athlete. He's very natural hands, a very smooth pass catcher, good route runner, can make plays in contested catches, good yak. He's got all of the same skills, but he just is not to the athleticism level that Noah Fant is. And it's possible that on a better team, if he's get drafted into a very good situation, that Hockenberg, maybe like the Patriots, Hockenberg could end up being a better fantasy option than Noah Fant. But he doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't have the same ceiling. So the 2 guys from Iowa, the top 2 prospects. Another guy that a lot of people like that I necessarily don't is Irv Smith Jr. out of Alabama. People are going to do 2 things. They're going to make 2 lazy-ass comparisons with Irv Smith. One is O.J. Howard, because he's a former Alabama player. Second is Jordan Reed. Talk about O.J. Howard first, right? That shit needs to stop. Irv Smith measured in at 6'2", 240 pounds. O.J. Howard is 6'6", 250 pounds. Howard ran a 4.51. Smith ran a 4.63. A 4.63 is fine. That's good for a tight end. But when you're comparing him to O.J. Howard is much bigger, much taller, weighs more, and ran a 40 in a much faster time. Irv Smith also tested really poorly from an agility standpoint and burst tests at the combine. So you can be lazy and say things like, oh, he's 6'2", I could see him being like Jordan Reed. But Jordan Reed's agility scoring was in the 93rd percentile, while you flip that around for Smith, and he was in the 39th percentile. So yes, he has pretty good straight line speed, but he's not anywhere near as big as O.J. Howard, so don't compare him to that. And he's not anywhere near as quick in terms of his footwork as Jordan Howard. So I think both of those are very, very lazy player comps. Jordan Reed, sorry, I didn't mean to say Jordan Howard. I've been talking about Jordan Reed this whole time, if that's what I've been saying. Jordan Reed also had an 80th percentile college dominator rating, which is the percentage of your team's market share, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns that you had in college compared to other tight ends in the country. 80th percentile for Jordan Reed. Irv Smith was down in the 35th percentile. So, like I said, I don't think he's explosive enough to be an elite playmaker. And you don't necessarily have to be explosive to be an elite playmaker, but you do have to have the volume. And being 6'2", I don't think he's going to be someone that can play every down in the NFL for a team. So, I think he has 2 big red flags there in terms of his size and in terms of his explosion. So, if he winds up in a good situation, and you whiff on the first 2 tight ends, if you whiff on Hockenberg and if you whiff on Fant, they get picked. Sure, maybe I'll take a chance on Irv Smith in the late 2nd, early 3rd round, but he doesn't really do it for me. One guy I like better than Irv Smith is Jace Sternberger of Texas A&M. Before we get into Mr. Jace Sternberger, if you are enjoying the video, I would very much appreciate if you dropped a comment down below letting me know some of the under-the-radar guys you enjoy. If you're just watching this on your phone or on the desktop, just scroll down a little bit, hit that thumbs up button, lets me know you appreciate the videos, lets me know that I should keep making these types of videos. So show the support there. And if you're just getting started in Dynasty, or if you're really interested in learning more about rookies, we are creating, and it will launch on March 25th, the Big Dogs Gotta Eat 2019 Rookie/Dynasty Draft Kit. That's over at BigDogsDraftGuide.com. If you order prior to March 25th, you are going to get 20% off the pre-order price, or the launch price, I should say. In this kit is going to be the top 50 to 60 prospects, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back, all for fantasy football, in-depth breakdowns of all of those players. We're going to talk about their best team fit, so prior to the NFL draft, and then this will also be updated post-NFL draft. We're going to be talking about the ceiling and the floor analysis of all of these players. So if they're in the right situation, how good can they be in fantasy football? You're going to have exclusive content in this draft kit talking about top 5, these have been personally written by Yamans, top 5 mistakes that new Dynasty players make, as well as top 5 websites and resources you can use for Dynasty and rookie research and analysis. So everything I know, I'm going to give to y'all. It's in the draft kit. It's up for pre-order right now. So is the season-long one, but that won't come out until a little bit later. Make sure you go check that out at BigDogsDraftGuide.com. Order now for percentage off the launch price. I love y'all. Jace Sternberger is another guy that I love. Standing at 6'4", 251 pounds. Good size, okay speed, 4.75. I wish he had ran a little bit faster, but still puts him in the 57th percentile for weight-adjusted speed score. He's a really, really, really smooth athlete at the tight end position. He's just like Noah Fant in the sense that he feels more like a wide receiver than he does a tight end, but he is capable enough as a blocker, as is Noah Fant. Neither of them are elite at that sense of the game, but both of them are capable enough that an NFL team will keep them on the field for all 3 downs. I also like that he tested pretty well in the agility scores. One thing to note is he is a little bit of an older prospect. He'll be 23 at the end of this upcoming NFL season. So I think in December he turns 23, which isn't super old, but it does mean that he'll be a little bit more refined coming into the NFL, right? As a route runner and as a prospect, which is usually a bad thing when you're talking about like wide receivers, because you want a younger prospect for the most part. But for tight ends, it takes them a while to have production in the NFL. So if you're coming in more refined, you probably have a better chance to make an impact on your team sooner rather than later. And the reason he's coming out as an older prospect, and this is kind of what happened to him in college, he bounced around, right? He redshirted at Kansas first year. Then he ended up transferring to a JUCO where he put up pretty good numbers. And then Jimbo Fisher, the Texas A&M head coach, kind of discovered him and had him transfer over to A&M. And then his junior season, right before he came out, he put up 832 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, 48 catches, 17.3 yards per reception. Those receiving yards, 832, was second in the entire NCAA. He was first in yards per reception amongst any tight end that had 30 or more catches, and he led the country with 10 tight end touchdowns. So Sternberger is a great athlete. I would love to see him go somewhere that utilizes the tight end as a pass catcher. Ridiculous yards after the catch, really soft hands, can be a very good playmaker in a solid offense. So definitely someone to keep an eye on. Next guy to keep an eye on is Caleb Wilson out of UCLA. He was the only tight end in the country to actually top Sternberger in terms of receiving yards. He ended up with 965 last year. He also led the NCAA tight ends in receptions with 60, also averaging a nice 16.1 yards per reception. So he's a playmaker. He only caught 4 touchdowns, but touchdowns I feel like fluctuate, and it's hard to bank on those being a year-over-year thing, especially at the tight end position. So his numbers by themselves were good enough for a 91st percentile college dominator rating. I think it was very big what he did at the combine. It wasn't great, but I think a lot of people expected him to underperform what he did. He ran a 4.56 40-yard dash, which put him in the 87th percentile for weight-adjusted speed score. He measured in at 6'4", which I think a lot of people thought he might be a little shorter. 240 is good, 33-inch arm length. So the combine definitely helped Caleb Wilson a little bit. He's a little bit of a raw prospect, and he's kind of undersized just in terms of his frame. But that explosion, the 87th percentile weight-adjusted speed score, definitely intrigues me a little bit. So he has upside. He's a very natural pass catcher. He is someone absolutely to keep an eye on, depending on where he goes. So some of these guys will need a good landing spot, like Caleb Wilson, like Jace Sternberger. Other guys like Noah Fant, I see having an impact no matter where he goes. So the NFL draft, of course, will be the main factor in what their fantasy football outlooks are. But again, you will be able to see my post-NFL draft outlooks in depth for every player in the draft guide, BigDogsDraftGuide.com. Thank you for joining me today. Friday's video will be my top running back sleepers in the NFL. We're done talking about rookies until the NFL draft comes back around. My top running back sleepers. So look out for Friday's video. Again, if you enjoyed this one, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're hitting everything 2019 fantasy football up and through the summer, up until your drafts. Hopefully throughout the season, we're going to help you win the chip. And I'll see y'all on Friday. Peace.